Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1, The Foundation. Robert Bobby Castellano had always believed in building things to last. At 52, he'd spent 30 years constructing an empire that started with a single construction truck and grew into Castellano Holdings, a multi-million-dollar real estate development company that owned half the commercial properties in downtown Phoenix. His calloused hands and weathered face told the story of a man who'd climbed from laying concrete to signing million-dollar deals. The foundation of his success wasn't just business acumen. It was his ability to read people, to see their weaknesses before they knew they had them. His late father, Antonio, had taught him that lesson when Bobby was 16. Trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets. Mijo. Remember who fills your bucket and who drains it. Bobby had met Linda Grayson 25 years ago at a charity auction. She was 28 then, a stunning blonde with emerald eyes and the kind of smile that could disarm a hostile takeover. She worked as an interior designer for upscale homes, and Bobby had hired her to decorate his newly purchased mansion in Scottsdale. What started as a professional relationship bloomed into romance, then marriage within 18 months. Linda came from old Phoenix money. Her grandfather had been one of the city's first major real estate developers. But by the time Bobby met her, the Grayson fortune had dwindled to a trust fund and a reputation. Linda craved the lifestyle she'd grown up with, and Bobby was more than willing to provide it. He loved her passion, her eye for beauty, and the way she made his sterile bachelor existence feel like a home. Their children came quickly. Travis was born first, now 23 and fresh out of Arizona State with a business degree. Emma followed 2 years later, 21, and studying art history at USC. Bobby had given them everything: private schools, European vacations, cars on their 16th birthdays, and college educations without student loans. He'd worked 70-hour weeks to ensure they never wanted for anything. Travis had always been Linda's favorite. Where Emma inherited Bobby's olive complexion and dark eyes, Travis was all Linda, blonde, fair, with her easy charm and social grace. Bobby had tried to bond with his son through work, bringing him to construction sites and teaching him the business. But Travis seemed more interested in the glamorous side of real estate, the networking events, the expensive dinners, the social status, than the gritty work of actually building something. Emma, meanwhile, had grown distant over the past few years. College had changed her, filling her head with ideas about privilege and social justice that seemed to put her at odds with everything Bobby had worked to achieve. Their last real conversation had ended in an argument about wealth inequality and exploiting workers, accusations that cut deeper than she probably intended. What Bobby didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that 6 months ago, Linda had reconnected with her college boyfriend, Derek Hoffman, at their 25th class reunion. Derek was now a successful plastic surgeon in Beverly Hills, recently divorced from his own wealthy wife. Where Bobby was rough around the edges despite his success, Derek was polished sophistication. Where Bobby built things with his hands, Derek sculpted faces and bodies into perfection. Their affair had started as nostalgic text messages and evolved into weekend trips when Bobby was traveling for business. Linda had convinced herself she deserved this, deserved someone who understood her background, her needs, her desires for a more refined life. She'd grown tired of Bobby's intensity, his need to control every aspect of their lives, his obsession with loyalty and betrayal that made him see enemies everywhere. Derek had been whispering in her ear for months. "You're wasted on him, Lynn. You're champagne trying to live in a beer bottle." He'd been encouraging her to file for divorce, promising her a life of country clubs and gallery openings, away from the dust and noise of construction sites. What sealed Linda's decision was Travis's suggestion 3 weeks ago. Her son, who'd been working at Castellano Holdings since graduation, had grown frustrated with his father's micromanagement and old-school methods. "Mom, Dad's never going to change. He's going to run the company into the ground with his paranoia and control issues. You could take half of everything in a divorce and live however you want." Emma, influenced by her university social justice courses, had agreed. Mom, you've been enabling Dad's toxic masculinity for 25 years. He treats his workers terribly. He treats you like property, and he thinks money solves everything. You deserve better. The plan they hatched was simple. Change the locks while Bobby was at his monthly investor meeting in Las Vegas. Film a message telling him he was no longer welcome, and present him with divorce papers upon his return. Travis had assured his mother that they had every legal right to lock him out. The house was in both their names, and Arizona was a community property state. Emma had found a feminist lawyer who specialized in liberating women from controlling relationships. None of them had truly considered what they were dealing with. Bobby Castellano wasn't just a successful businessman. He was a man who'd grown up in neighborhoods where respect was everything and betrayal was met with consequences. He'd built his empire by being smarter, more ruthless, and more patient than his competitors. He'd crushed hostile takeovers, outlasted economic downturns, and destroyed rivals who underestimated him. And now his own family had just declared war. Chapter 2. The Video. Bobby's phone buzzed as he sat in his suite at the Wynn Las Vegas, reviewing contracts for a new casino development project. The investor meeting had gone better than expected. 3 new partners had signed on, bringing the project's funding to nearly 8 figures. He was calculating profit margins when he saw the text from Linda. Watch this. We need to talk when you get home. The video opened with Linda standing in their living room, flanked by Travis and Emma. All 3 were dressed formally, as if this were a business presentation rather than a family message. Linda's voice was steady, rehearsed. Bobby, we've changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Your belongings will be packed and placed in storage. Don't try to come inside. Our lawyer will be in contact. Travis stepped forward, his 23-year-old face set in what he probably thought was a tough expression. Dad, this is for the best. You've been controlling and toxic for too long. We're done enabling your behavior. Emma nodded, her art student idealism shining through. We can't be part of perpetuating harmful power structures anymore. This is us taking our power back. The video ended with Linda holding up a new set of keys. We changed all the locks. You don't have a home anymore. Bobby watched the video 3 times, his expression never changing. Then he set the phone down, poured himself 3 fingers of bourbon, and began to laugh. It started as a chuckle, then built into something that would have chilled his family had they been there to hear it. He picked up his phone and typed a response. How funny. How brave you think you are, haha. What his family didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that Bobby Castellano had been preparing for betrayal his entire adult life. Growing up in a neighborhood where family businesses were destroyed by jealous relatives and successful men were brought down by their own blood, he'd learned early to protect himself from every possible threat. The house they'd locked him out of? Legally, it belonged to a shell company Bobby had created 15 years ago, with Linda listed as a beneficiary but not an owner. The cars they drove, the credit cards they used, the bank accounts they accessed, all tied to the business in ways his family had never bothered to understand. Travis thought he understood the company because he'd worked there for 6 months, but Bobby had made sure his son only saw what he wanted him to see. The real assets, the offshore accounts, the web of companies and trusts that protected Bobby's wealth. Those are known only to Bobby and his lawyer, a shark named Felix Rodriguez who'd been handling Bobby's affairs for 20 years. Bobby had built his life like he'd built his buildings, with multiple layers of protection, redundant systems, and the ability to withstand any assault. His family had just launched an attack against what they thought was his foundation, never realizing they were only scratching the surface. He finished his bourbon and made 3 phone calls. The first was to Felix Rodriguez. They made their move. Initiate Protocol 7. The second was to Marcus Chun, his head of security at Castellano Holdings. Marcus was a former Marine who'd served 2 tours in Afghanistan before Bobby hired him away from a private military contractor. I need a full background workup on Dr. Derek Hoffman, Beverly Hills plastic surgeon. Everything. Financial, personal, professional. I want to know what he ate for breakfast and who he ate it with. The third call was to his accountant, Patricia Walsh. Patty, it's Bobby. I need you to freeze all personal accounts effective immediately. Family emergency. Transfer everything to the secure holdings we discussed. Yes, everything. By the time Bobby boarded his private jet the next morning, the war had already begun. His family just didn't know it yet. The flight from Vegas to Phoenix gave Bobby 2 hours to plan. He'd always been a chess player, thinking 5 moves ahead while his opponents were still figuring out how the pieces moved. Linda, Travis, and Emma had made their opening gambit, revealing their strategy and their allies. Now it was his turn. He thought about his father's advice. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them the first time. His family had just shown him that 25 years of love, sacrifice, and provision meant nothing to them. They saw him as a wallet, a convenience, an obstacle to their happiness. They conspired against him, planned his downfall, and celebrated his exile. Bobby felt something cold settle in his chest, something that had been dormant since his early days building the business. It was the part of him that had foreclosed on widows who couldn't pay their mortgages, that had outbid family for their dream homes only to flip them for profit, that had fired entire crews right before Christmas to save money on holiday bonuses. He'd tried to bury that ruthlessness when he became a family man, to be the father and husband his family deserved. But they just reminded him why he'd learned to be ruthless in the first place. Because in the end, everyone betrays you. Everyone has a price. Everyone will choose their own comfort over your well-being. His phone buzzed with a text from Felix. Hoffman's got problems. We'll brief you when you land. Bobby smiled for the first time since watching the video. He'd built his empire by understanding that information was power, that leverage was everything, and that patience was the deadliest weapon in any arsenal. His family thought they'd locked him out. They had no idea they'd just locked themselves in. Chapter 3. The Lawyer's Call. Bobby spent his first night in the penthouse suite at the Phoenix Biltmore, a luxury hotel he partially owned through one of his holding companies. He could have stayed anywhere. He owned properties throughout the city, but he wanted to be visible, wanted his absence from the family home to be noticed by their social circle. He ordered room service and spent the evening on his laptop, reviewing the financial architecture he'd built over 2 decades. Every major asset was protected. Every potential vulnerability had been addressed years ago. The house his family thought they controlled was owned by Castellano Property Holdings LLC, where Bobby was the sole decision-maker. Their personal bank accounts were tied to business credit lines that he could terminate with a phone call. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd structured everything this way to protect his family from potential business liabilities, lawsuits, or economic downturns. He'd wanted to ensure that even if his company faced catastrophic loss, Linda and the children would be secure. Instead, his protective measures had become the bars of their own cage. At 7 a.m., Felix Rodriguez arrived with coffee and a thick manila folder. Felix was a lean, sharp-suited man in his 60s who'd built his reputation representing Phoenix's most ruthless businessmen. He'd guided Bobby through every major deal, every hostile negotiation, every legal challenge of the past 20 years. Your wife hired Samantha Cross, Felix said without preamble. She's that feminist lawyer who's been in the news for liberating wives from oppressive marriages. Specializes in community property cases, very aggressive, loves the media attention. Bobby nodded. What's her angle? Emotional abuse, financial control, hostile work environment for Travis. Cross is positioning this as a case of an abused family finally standing up to a tyrant. She's probably already preparing press releases. And Derek Hoffman? Felix's smile was predatory. That's where it gets interesting. He opened the folder, revealing photographs, financial documents, and legal papers. Dr. Derek Hoffman, 52, divorced from his wife Amanda 6 months ago. The divorce was ugly. She accused him of having affairs with patients, using his practice to supply drugs to Beverly Hills socialites, and manipulating wealthy women into unnecessary procedures. Bobby studied the documents. Tell me more about the drug allegations. Nothing proven, but Amanda's lawyer had enough evidence to force a favorable settlement. Hoffman's been very careful since then, but his practice is struggling. Lost several major clients, 3 top nurses quit, and his malpractice insurance costs have skyrocketed. Financial situation? leverage to the eyeballs. The divorce settlement, legal fees, and business losses have him close to bankruptcy. He's been taking on riskier procedures, working with less reputable clients, and there are rumors he's been providing services that aren't exactly medical. Bobby leaned back in his chair. This was what he'd hoped for: leverage. What kind of services? Facial reconstruction for people who don't want to be recognized. Cash only, no records. The kind of work that attracts clients who have good reasons to change their appearance. And Linda doesn't know any of this. Your wife sees a successful Beverly Hills surgeon who drives a Porsche and takes her to expensive restaurants. She has no idea his practice is failing, and he's desperate enough to take money from very dangerous people. Bobby's phone rang. The caller ID showed Samantha Cross, attorney at law. He gestured for Felix to stay quiet and answered. Mr. Castellano, this is Samantha Cross. I represent your wife in this matter. We have a problem. We need to discuss this immediately. Bobby's voice was calm, almost amused. Miss Cross, I'm not sure what problem you're referring to. My family chose to lock me out of what they believe is their home. I'm respecting their wishes by staying away. Mr. Castellano, please don't play games. You know exactly what you've done. The accounts, the credit cards, the house. The house that's owned by my company? The accounts that are tied to my business? The credit cards that I pay for through my corporate holdings? Bobby's tone remained pleasant. I'm confused about what problem you think we have. It was a long pause. Mr. Castellano, cutting off your family's access to money and housing could be considered financial abuse. Ms. Cross, my family declared their independence from me. They informed me I don't have a home anymore. I'm simply respecting their decision to separate their lives from mine. If they want financial independence, I'm happy to provide it. Another pause, longer this time. Bobby could hear papers rustling, probably Linda's voice in the background growing increasingly frantic. Mr. Castellano, we need to meet. Today. I'm a very busy man, Miss Cross, but I'll make time for you at 3 p.m. My office at Castellano Holdings. He hung up before she could respond. Felix was grinning. They didn't expect this. They thought I was just another controlling husband who'd panic when threatened with divorce. They have no idea what they're dealing with. Bobby stood and walked to the window, looking out over the Phoenix skyline. Half the buildings in view had been built or financed through his companies. What's the play? Felix asked. Linda wants a divorce? Fine. We'll give her exactly what she's asking for, and nothing she isn't entitled to. Travis wants to run the company his way? Perfect. We'll see how he handles having no company to run. Emma thinks I'm a toxic patriarch exploiting workers? Excellent. She can learn about exploitation firsthand. And Hoffman. Bobby turned back to Felix, and for a moment, the lawyer saw something in his client's eyes that made him glad they were on the same side. Derek Hoffman thinks he can steal my wife and destroy my family. He's about to learn that some men are too dangerous to cross. What do you need from me? File a countersuit. Alienation of affection against Hoffman, parental alienation against Linda for turning the children against me, and breach of fiduciary duty against Travis for his actions while employed by my company. Make it public, make it ugly, and make sure the media knows exactly what kind of man Linda left me for. Felix made notes. The alienation of affection case will require evidence of the affair. I'll have that by tonight. Marcus is already on it. And the financial aspects. Linda's entitled to half of our marital assets. The house we bought together, the savings we accumulated during marriage, her jewelry, and personal effects. She's welcome to all of it. Bobby's smile was cold. Of course, she'll also be responsible for half of our marital debts, which includes several business loans I've personally guaranteed. Funny how those loans were completely worthless before yesterday, but now that we're divorcing, they've become quite pressing obligations. Felix understood immediately. How pressing? Let's say my wife's half of our marital debts will be approximately $12 million. Give or take. And Travis? Travis is no longer employed by any of my companies. His company car has been repossessed, his corporate credit cards canceled, and his access to our properties revoked. If he wants to run a business, he's welcome to start his own. Emma. Her college tuition was paid through a trust fund that terminates if she shows conduct detrimental to family unity. I'd say participating in a conspiracy to lock me out of my own home qualifies. Felix gathered his papers. I'll have everything filed by end of business today. But Bobby, are you sure you want to go this route? Once we escalate like this, there's no going back. Bobby thought about the video, about 25 years of marriage, ending with his wife holding up new keys like trophies. He thought about his son's smug face, his daughter's righteous expression, their complete certainty that he would simply accept their betrayal. Felix, my family just taught me that love is conditional, loyalty is temporary, and family is just a word people use until they find something better. They want to see who Bobby Castellano really is when you strip away the husband and father. He straightened his tie and picked up his jacket. Let's show them. Chapter 4. The Investigation. By noon, Marcus Chun had delivered what Bobby needed. The former Marine's efficiency was one of the reasons Bobby paid him 6 figures to handle security for Castellano Holdings. The manila envelope Marcus handed him contained enough evidence to end Derek Hoffman's career and send him to prison. Hoffman's been sloppy, Marcus reported, settling into the leather chair across from Bobby's desk. The affair with your wife started 6 months ago, but he's been running his side business for almost 2 years. We've got photos, financial records, and testimony from 3 former clients. Bobby spread the photographs across his desk. Derek and Linda at expensive restaurants, walking hand in hand through Beverly Hills, entering a luxury hotel together. The timestamps showed their affair had been going on during Travis's graduation, during Emma's last visit home, during their anniversary dinner 3 months ago, when Linda had seemed so loving and attentive. The other business? Bobby asked. Hoffman's been providing facial reconstruction for clients who pay cash and don't ask for records. Nothing technically illegal about changing someone's appearance, but his client list reads like a who's who of people fleeing prosecution. Marcus handed him a second set of photos. These were taken outside his private clinic over the past month. Bobby recognized 2 faces from FBI wanted posters, another from a news report about embezzlement charges. He's desperate. Gets worse. His ex-wife was right about the drug allegations. Hoffman's been supplying prescription painkillers and anxiety medications to Beverly Hills socialites, mostly bored housewives looking for an escape. We've got video of transactions, records of prescriptions that don't match medical files, and a paper trail showing he's been buying medication from questionable sources. Evidence that would hold up in court, enough to destroy him. But Bobby, there's something else. Marcus's expression grew serious. One of his recent clients is Vincent Torino. Bobby looked up sharply. Vincent Torino was the son of Carlo Torino, a mob boss who'd been laundering money through Phoenix real estate for decades. Vincent had been indicted on racketeering charges 6 months ago and had disappeared before trial. Hoffman did work on Torino. Full facial reconstruction 3 weeks ago. Cash payment, no records. If the FBI connects Hoffman to Torino's disappearance, your wife's boyfriend is looking at accessory charges for aiding a fugitive. Bobby leaned back in his chair, processing the implications. This was better than he'd hoped. Not only could he destroy Hoffman personally and professionally, but he could do it in a way that would terrify Linda and make her realize exactly what kind of man she'd chosen over her husband. Where's Hoffman now? Beverly Hills. Your wife is with him. They're at his apartment, planning their next move. Probably trying to figure out how to access money that no longer exists. Bobby's intercom buzzed. His secretary announced that Samantha Cross had arrived for their 3 p.m. meeting. Perfect timing. Marcus, I need you to do something for me. Contact the FBI field office in Los Angeles. Ask to speak with Agent Sarah Powell. She's been hunting Vincent Torino for 6 months. Tell her you have information about someone who helped Torino alter his appearance. You want me to turn Hoffman in? Not yet. I want them to start watching him. When this all comes out, I want it to look like the FBI discovered Hoffman's illegal activities through their own investigation, not through a tip from a vengeful ex-husband. Marcus nodded and left. 2 minutes later, Samantha Cross entered Bobby's office flanked by Linda and Travis. Emma had apparently decided not to attend, probably considering this beneath her newfound social consciousness. Samantha Cross was exactly what Bobby had expected, a sharp-suited woman in her 40s with the aggressive confidence of someone who'd built her career on high-profile cases. Linda looked nervous, her usual composure cracking as she avoided Bobby's eyes. Travis appeared sullen and defiant, apparently still believing he held some kind of advantage. "Mr. Castellano," Cross began, "we need to discuss a reasonable resolution to this situation. Your actions in cutting off your family's access to funds and housing are legally questionable and morally reprehensible." Bobby gestured for them to sit. "Ms. Cross, I'm confused. My understanding is that my family has chosen to separate from me. They've locked me out of what they believe is their home and informed me that I'm no longer welcome in their lives. I'm simply respecting their decision." "Dad, don't be ridiculous," Travis interrupted. "You can't just cut us off completely. We have rights." Bobby looked at his son with mild interest. "Rights? Travis, you're 23 years old. You have the right to food, shelter, and clothing that you provide for yourself. You have a right to employment that you earn through your own efforts. You have the right to housing that you pay for with your own money. I'm not sure what other rights you think you're entitled to." Linda finally spoke, her voice shaky. "Bobby, this is insane. We can't access our bank accounts, the credit cards aren't working, and you've locked us out of everything. This isn't what we wanted." "Linda, this is exactly what you wanted. You wanted independence from me. You wanted me out of your life. You wanted to make your own decisions without my input." Bobby's voice remained calm, professional. "I'm giving you exactly what you asked for." Cross leaned forward. "Mr. Castellano, marital assets belong to both spouses. You can't simply appropriate everything because you're angry." "Ms. Cross, I haven't appropriated anything. Every asset my wife believes she has access to is either owned by my company or secured by business loans that I've personally guaranteed. As of yesterday, when my family declared their independence, those personal guarantees became individual debts." He slid a document across the desk. "This is a financial statement prepared by my accountant. It shows our current marital assets and debts. As you can see, we have approximately $800,000 in assets and $14 million in debts." Cross studied the document, her confidence wavering. "These business loans were personally guaranteed by both myself and my wife when we obtained them. That's standard practice for family-owned businesses." Linda signed every document, understanding that we were both equally responsible for repayment. Linda's face went white. "Bobby, those loans were for business purposes. The bank told us they were just formalities. The bank told us that business assets would secure the loans as long as the business remained profitable. Unfortunately, as of this morning, Castellano Holdings has experienced significant financial difficulties that make loan repayment uncertain." Travis was beginning to understand. "What kind of financial difficulties?" Bobby smiled. "Well, Travis, it turns out that when your most experienced project manager, your head of security, and your financial oversight team all resign on the same day, potential investors get nervous. Several major contracts have been suspended pending review, and our insurance carriers are questioning their coverage. Very unfortunate timing. You can't destroy your own company out of spite," Cross said. "I'm not destroying anything, Ms. Cross. I'm simply adjusting our business model in response to changing family circumstances. These things happen in family businesses when family members choose to pursue independent paths." Linda stood abruptly. "Bobby, stop this. Please, we can work this out." "Linda, I'm giving you exactly what you said you wanted. A divorce, independence, freedom from my control. Ms. Cross specializes in liberating women from oppressive marriages. She should be thrilled with how cooperative I'm being." Cross gathered her papers. "Mr. Castellano, this isn't over. We'll be filing for emergency relief, claiming financial abuse and manipulation. Ms. Cross, you're welcome to file whatever you'd like. I'm sure the court will be very interested in reviewing the circumstances that led to this situation, including the reasons why my wife suddenly decided she needed independence." He slid another document across the desk. "These are the divorce papers I'll be filing tomorrow. As you can see, I'm claiming adultery as grounds and seeking full custody of our minor children. Emma's 21, but still financially dependent and attending college on funds provided by me. Funds that were contingent on maintaining family unity." Linda sank back into her chair. Bobby, you can't do this to Emma. She's just a kid. She's an adult who chose to participate in a conspiracy against her father. Actions have consequences, Linda. I thought I'd taught our children that lesson, but apparently they need a refresher course. As Cross and Travis helped to shaken Linda from the office, Bobby called after them. Oh, and Linda? You might want to ask Derek about his recent business ventures. I think you'll find them very enlightening. Chapter 5. The Trap. That evening, Bobby sat in his penthouse suite reviewing the financial reports Marcus had compiled on Derek Hoffman. The plastic surgeon's desperation was even worse than they'd initially discovered. He owed nearly $2 million to various creditors. His malpractice insurance had been canceled, and he was facing investigation by the California Medical Board for unethical practices. The most interesting detail was a loan Hoffman had taken from a private lender 6 months ago, a man named Anthony Marcelli who had connections to organized crime families in Los Angeles. The loan was for $500,000 at 30% interest, with payment due in full within 1 year. Hoffman had 4 months left to repay $650,000, money he clearly didn't have. Bobby's phone rang. Linda's number appeared on the screen. Hello, Linda. Bobby, we need to talk. Please. This has gone too far. Her voice was strained, exhausted. I'm listening. Can we meet? Somewhere private? I want to discuss. I want to work something out. Linda, you've made your position very clear. You want a divorce, you want independence, and you want me out of your life. I'm respecting your wishes. Bobby, please. I know about Derek's problems. I know about his practice, his debts, everything. I made a mistake. Bobby felt a surge of satisfaction. His information had reached her faster than expected. What kind of mistake? I was lonely, Bobby. You work so much, you're so focused on business, and I felt like I didn't matter anymore. Derek made me feel young again, special again. But I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? A long pause. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted a divorce. I wanted you to notice me again. Bobby walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. 25 years of marriage, and his wife had orchestrated an elaborate betrayal because she felt neglected. So, this was all a performance? The locks, the video, the lawyer? Derek convinced me that you'd never change unless I showed you I was serious. He said, men, like you only respond to dramatic gestures. The plan was to scare you into couples counseling, into spending more time at home. And Travis and Emma, they were trying to protect me. Derek told them stories about controlling husbands, about financial abuse. They thought they were helping me escape an oppressive situation. Bobby processed this information. His wife had been manipulated by a desperate man who saw her as his path to financial salvation. His children had been turned against him by someone who knew exactly which emotional buttons to push. It didn't excuse their betrayal, but it provided context. Linda, where are you now? At Derek's apartment. He's not the man I thought he was, Bobby. There are people calling, threatening him. He's scared, and now I'm scared too. What kind of people? I don't know. Men with accents, talking about money he owes. Bobby, I think I'm in danger. Bobby closed his eyes, feeling a familiar rage building. His wife had betrayed him, but she was still his wife, the mother of his children, and Derek Hoffman had put her in danger to save his own skin. Linda, listen to me carefully. Pack your things immediately. Leave Derek's apartment and go to the Biltmore. Check in under your maiden name. Don't tell anyone where you're going, not even Derek. Bobby, do it now. We'll talk tomorrow, but right now you need to be somewhere safe. After hanging up, Bobby called Marcus. Change of plans. Linda's in immediate danger. Hoffman's loan shark is probably making moves tonight. What do you want me to do? Keep eyes on Hoffman's apartment. If anyone approaches Linda, intervene. But Bobby, if Hoffman tries to leave with her, stop him. Understood. Bobby's next call was to Felix Rodriguez. Felix, I need you to prepare new documents. Full custody of both children, emergency restraining order against Derek Hoffman, and a motion to freeze all of Linda's assets pending investigation of her involvement in Hoffman's illegal activities. Are you sure about this, Bobby? If Linda's genuinely trying to come home. Felix, my wife spent 6 months planning my destruction. She turned my children against me, tried to steal my property, and put herself in danger with a criminal. Her change of heart now that she's scared doesn't erase what she did. And if she's genuinely remorseful? Bobby thought about the video message, about Travis's smug face, and Linda holding up those keys like trophies. Then she'll have the rest of her life to prove it. But she'll do it from a position where she can never hurt me or my children again. At midnight, Marcus called with an update. Linda left Hoffman's apartment an hour ago. She's at the Biltmore under the name Grayson. But Bobby, you need to know, Hoffman followed her. He's in the lobby, trying to convince her to leave with him. Is she buying it? No. She told him she was done, that she wanted to work things out with you. He's not taking it well. Bobby felt something cold settle in his stomach. How not well? He's drunk, making scenes, talking about how much money he's invested in this relationship. Hotel security is watching him, but they haven't intervened yet. I'm on my way. Bobby drove through the empty Phoenix streets, his mind racing. Everything was falling into place exactly as he'd planned, but now Linda was genuinely in danger. Hoffman was desperate enough to work with criminals, unstable enough to stalk his ex-wife, and drunk enough to do something stupid. When Bobby arrived at the Biltmore, he found Hoffman in the hotel bar, disheveled and ranting to anyone who would listen about ungrateful women and wasted opportunities. Linda was in her room, but hotel security reported that Hoffman had been asking questions about her, trying to find out her room number. Bobby approached the bar. Derek. Hoffman turned, his eyes bloodshot and unfocused. Bobby fucking Castellano, the great man himself. His words were slurred, his expensive suit wrinkled and stained. We need to talk. Talk. Your wife just destroyed my life, and you want to talk. Bobby sat on the adjacent bar stool, signaling the bartender for 2 whiskeys. Derek, let me explain something to you. 6 months ago, you had a failing practice, massive debts, and a reputation in ruins. My wife didn't destroy your life. You did that all by yourself. She was supposed to. Hoffman stopped himself. She was supposed to what? Bring her divorce settlement to help pay your debts? Fund your escape from the people you owe money to? Bobby sipped his whiskey. Tell me, Derek, what was the plan? Marry Linda, move to a non-extradition country, start fresh with her money. Hoffman's silence was answer enough. The problem with your plan, Bobby continued, is that you chose the wrong mark. Linda doesn't have any money. I do. And unlike your previous victims, I don't go down easy. What do you want? Bobby set down his glass and looked directly at Hoffman. I want you to disappear. Tonight. Leave Phoenix, leave California, leave Linda alone forever. Do that, and I might not share what I know about your business with the FBI. You don't know anything. Bobby pulled out his phone and showed Hoffman a photograph. Derek performing surgery on Vincent Torino. The FBI has been looking for Torino for 6 months. They'd be very interested to know who helped him disappear. Hoffman's face went white. You can't prove. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to make one phone call, and Agent Powell will be very motivated to investigate your practice. Even if the charges don't stick, the investigation alone will destroy what's left of your reputation. Bobby stood and placed a business card on the bar. You have until sunrise to leave town. If you're still here tomorrow, or if you ever contact my wife again, I'll make that call. And Derek? The people you owe money to will be very unhappy when they learn the FBI is investigating you. As Bobby walked away, he heard Hoffman order another drink with shaking hands. By morning, the problem of Derek Hoffman would be resolved one way or another. Chapter 6, The Reckoning. Linda was waiting in Bobby's penthouse suite when he returned from the Biltmore. She sat on the leather sofa where they'd spent countless evenings together, looking smaller and more fragile than he'd seen her in years. Her designer clothes were wrinkled, her perfect makeup smeared, and her hands shook as she held a cup of coffee. The hotel manager let you in? Bobby asked, pouring himself a drink. I told him I was your wife, which I guess I still am, technically. Bobby sat across from her, studying the woman he'd loved for 25 years. For now, Bobby, I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. Derek convinced me that you were controlling, that our marriage was unhealthy. He showed me articles about financial abuse, emotional manipulation. He made me believe that I was a victim, and you believed him because it was easier than admitting you were bored. Linda flinched. That's not fair, isn't it? Linda, In 25 years of marriage, have I ever denied you anything? Have I ever controlled your spending, your friendships, your activities? Have I ever told you what to wear, where to go, who to see? No, but have I ever raised a hand to you? Threatened you? Isolated you from your family or friends? No, but you work all the time. You're obsessed with business, with making money, with building the company. I felt like I was married to a corporation, not a man. Bobby set down his drink. I work because I love you, because I love our children. Every deal I close, every building I develop, every dollar I earn, it's all for this family. I wanted to give you the life you grew up with, the security you deserved. I know that now. But Bobby, I was lonely. I felt invisible in my own marriage. So you decided to destroy it. Linda began to cry, tears streaming down her face. I wanted you to fight for me. I wanted you to show me that our marriage mattered more than your business. Derek said that powerful men only change when they're forced to, when they lose something important. Bobby felt a familiar anger rising, but it was different now, colder, more controlled. So this was all a test. 25 years of marriage, and you decided to test whether I loved you enough. I made a mistake. You made a choice. You chose to believe a criminal over your husband. You chose to turn our children against me. You chose to humiliate me, to try to steal my property, to destroy everything we built together. Bobby's voice remained calm, but Linda could see the rage in his eyes. And when your plan backfired, when Derek revealed his true colors, you decided you wanted to come home. Bobby, please. I love you. I've always loved you. I just got confused, manipulated. Linda, do you know what Derek's real plan was? He wasn't trying to save you from an oppressive marriage. He was trying to get access to our money to pay off his gambling debts. The romantic getaways, the declarations of love, the promises of a better life. It was all a con. Linda's face went pale. What do you mean? Bobby showed her the financial reports Marcus had compiled. Derek owes $2 million to people who break legs when they don't get paid. His practice is failing. His ex-wife took half his assets, and he's facing criminal charges. He saw you as his path to financial salvation. Linda studied the documents, her hands shaking. He said he loved me. He said we were meant to be together. He said what you needed to hear. And you believed him because it was more exciting than the boring reality of being married to a man who works hard to provide for his family. That's not. I wasn't looking for excitement. I was looking for attention. For love. Bobby stood and walked to the window. Linda, I gave you attention every day for 25 years. I came home to you every night. I took you on vacations, bought you jewelry, supported your interests and friends. But somewhere along the way, you decided that wasn't enough. You wanted grand gestures, you wanted drama. You wanted to feel like you were in a romance novel instead of a real marriage. I know I made mistakes. You made choices, and choices have consequences. Bobby turned back to face her. Tomorrow morning, Derek will be gone. He's leaving town tonight, and he'll never contact you again. The question is what happens to us. Linda looked up hopefully. Can we try again? Can we go to counseling, work on our marriage? Linda, 3 days ago you locked me out of my own home and told me I didn't belong in your life. You convinced our children to betray me, hired a lawyer to destroy me, and celebrated your independence. Now that you're scared and alone, you want to work on our marriage. I want to come home, Bobby. I want to be your wife again. Bobby sat back down, his expression unreadable. Here's what's going to happen. You can come home, but on my terms. No more independent bank accounts, no more separate activities, no more girls' trips or social events without me. You want to be my wife? Then you'll act like my wife. Linda nodded eagerly. Yes, whatever you want. You'll sign a new prenuptial agreement that protects all current and future assets. If you ever cheat again, ever betray me again, you'll leave with nothing. I understand. Travis and Emma will earn their way back into this family. Travis will start at the bottom of the company, earning minimum wage and proving he can be trusted. Emma will transfer to Arizona State and live at home, where we can monitor her activities and associations. Linda hesitated. Bobby, they're adults. They're children who participated in a conspiracy against their father. They'll prove their loyalty or they'll find their own way in the world. And if I agree to all of this, Bobby studied his wife, This woman who'd shared his bed for 25 years and then tried to destroy him when she got bored. Then we'll try to rebuild our marriage. But Linda, understand this. I will never trust you again. I will never again make myself vulnerable to you. You'll be my wife, but you'll also be under constant supervision. Linda wiped her tears and nodded. I deserve that. I know I deserve that. Do you? Because 3 days ago, you thought you deserved independence and excitement and a fresh start with a younger man. What's to stop you from changing your mind again when the restrictions get tiresome? I love you, Bobby. I've learned my lesson. Bobby looked at his wife and felt something die inside him. The love he'd felt for her, the trust that had anchored their marriage, the belief that their family was sacred, all of it was gone, replaced by cold calculation. We'll see, he said. We'll see. Chapter 7. The Children's Choice. The next morning brought news that Derek Hoffman had been found dead in his Beverly Hills apartment, apparently the victim of a drug overdose. The police investigation would eventually reveal that he'd mixed prescription painkillers with alcohol, a combination that had proven fatal. There would be no mention of the loan sharks, no investigation into his criminal clients, and no connection to Vincent Torino. Bobby received the news with the same emotional detachment he'd shown when learning about a business competitor's bankruptcy. Derek Hoffman had been a problem that required solving, and now the problem was solved. Whether the solution had been suicide, accident, or something more deliberate was irrelevant. Linda took the news harder than Bobby had expected. Despite everything, she'd apparently developed genuine feelings for the man who'd manipulated her. She spent the morning crying, oscillating between grief and guilt, occasionally asking Bobby if he thought Derek's death was her fault. Derek made his own choices, Bobby told her. He chose to involve himself with dangerous people, chose to manipulate you, chose to put himself in an impossible situation. Whatever happened to him was the consequence of those choices. By afternoon, Travis and Emma had arrived at the penthouse suite, summoned by their mother's frantic phone calls about Derek's death and their father's ultimatum. Both looked shocked and subdued, their confidence from 3 days earlier completely evaporated. Emma spoke first, her voice small and uncertain. Dad, we heard about Dr. Hoffman. Mom's really upset. Your mother will recover, Bobby replied. The question is whether you two have learned anything from this experience. Travis shifted uncomfortably. Dad, we made a mistake. We thought we were helping Mom, but we didn't understand the situation. You understood perfectly, Travis. You thought your mother was being abused, so you helped her escape. You thought I was a tyrant, so you rebelled against me. You thought you could run my company better than I could, so you tried to force me out. Bobby's voice was calm, almost conversational. The problem isn't that you misunderstood, it's that you were wrong. Emma stepped forward. Dad, we're sorry. We know we hurt you, and we want to make it right. Bobby studied his daughter, this young woman he'd raised and educated and loved unconditionally for 21 years. Emma, what exactly are you sorry for? For believing I was an abusive husband? For participating in a plan to steal my property? For turning against your father based on the word of a man you'd never met? All of it. We were wrong about everything. Were you? Or are you just sorry that your plan didn't work? Bobby walked to the window, his back to his children. 3 days ago, you both stood in my living room and told me I was toxic, controlling, and unwelcome in your lives. You celebrated locking me out of my own home. What's changed since then? Travis found his voice. We learned the truth about Derek, about what he was really after. So, if Derek had been a good man who genuinely loved your mother, you'd still be happy to see me destroyed? The question hung in the air, unanswered. Bobby turned back to face them. Here's what I think happened. You both got caught up in your mother's midlife crisis and convinced yourselves you were heroes in a story about rescuing an oppressed woman from a terrible man. You never questioned whether the story was true because it made you feel important, righteous, superior. Dad, Travis, you've worked for my company for 6 months. In that time, have you ever seen me mistreat an employee? Have you ever witnessed me being abusive or controlling with anyone? Travis looked down. No, but you wanted to believe it because it justified your resentment about my expectations, about the standards I set for you, about the work ethic I tried to teach you. Bobby shifted his attention to Emma. And you, With your social justice education, we're thrilled to have a real-life example of patriarchal oppression to fight against. It didn't matter that you'd never seen evidence of abuse. The narrative fit your worldview, so it must be true. Emma began to cry. Dad, we made a mistake. Can't you forgive us? Bobby felt something twist in his chest at his daughter's tears, but he pushed the feeling down. Emma, forgiveness is for accidents and honest mistakes. What you did was deliberate and calculated. You planned it, you executed it, and you celebrated it. We were trying to help Mom. You were trying to feel good about yourselves. Helping Mom was just the excuse. Bobby sat down, his expression hardening. But here's the real problem. Even now, facing the consequences of your choices, you're still making excuses. You're sorry you got caught, sorry your plan backfired, sorry Derek turned out to be a criminal. But you're not sorry for betraying your father. Travis stepped forward. That's not true. Dad, we love you. We want our family back. You want the benefits of being my children without the responsibilities. You want the trust fund without the loyalty, the inheritance without the respect, the lifestyle without the work. Bobby stood and walked to his desk, pulling out 2 documents. I'm willing to give you both a chance to prove me wrong. Travis, you can come back to work for the company. You'll start as a general laborer, earning minimum wage, with no special treatment, because you're my son. You'll work 40 hours a week, follow orders without question, and prove that you can be trusted with small responsibilities before being given larger ones. He handed Travis the employment contract. If you can do that for 2 years without complaint, I'll consider promoting you to an entry-level management position. Travis scanned the contract, his face showing his dismay. Dad, this is basically a punishment. It's an opportunity to prove you're more than an entitled child who thinks success should be handed to him. Bobby turned to Emma. Emma, you could transfer to Arizona State and live at home. You'll study business or engineering, something useful, and you'll work part-time for one of my companies to learn about the real world. No more social justice nonsense. No more protests. No more causes that teach you to resent success and hard work. Emma shook her head. Dad, you can't control what I study or believe in. I'm an adult. You're an adult who's been living on my money while learning to hate everything I stand for. If you want to continue being my daughter, you'll learn to respect what I've built instead of trying to tear it down. Both children looked stricken, the reality of their situation finally sinking in. What if we say no? Travis asked quietly. Then you'll have exactly what you said you wanted 3 days ago, independence from me. You'll pay your own bills, fund your own education, and make your own way in the world. I'll wish you luck and hope you find happiness. Emma was crying openly now. Dad, please. We made a mistake, but we're still your children. Bobby felt the familiar rage building again, but kept his voice level. My children would never have betrayed me the way you did. My children would have trusted me, believed in me, stood by me when I was attacked. You're strangers who happen to share my DNA. Linda, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally spoke. Bobby, they're just kids. They made mistakes, but they don't deserve. Linda, these kids are 23 and 21 years old. They're old enough to vote, old enough to serve in the military, old enough to get married and have children of their own. They're old enough to be held accountable for their choices. He looked back at Travis and Emma. You have until tomorrow morning to decide. Accept my terms and prove you're worthy of being part of this family, or maintain your independence and live with the consequences. As his children left the penthouse, both looking shell-shocked and uncertain, Bobby felt no satisfaction in their pain. But he also felt no inclination to comfort them. They had chosen their path when they stood in his living room and declared him unwelcome in their lives. Now, they would learn what it meant to live with the consequences of betraying Bobby Castellano. Chapter 8. The New Order. 3 weeks later, Bobby stood in his office watching Travis operate a jackhammer on the construction site below. His son wore a hard hat and safety vest like any other laborer, his expensive college education useless for the task of breaking up concrete. Travis had signed the employment contract after 2 days of living in a cheap motel and discovering how expensive independence could be. Emma had made the same choice, transferring to Arizona State and moving back in her childhood bedroom. She'd been required to sign a behavioral contract that restricted her social media activity, limited her political involvement, and required her to maintain a B+ average in her new business program. Linda sat across from Bobby's desk, reviewing the guest list for a charity gala they were hosting next month. To outside observers, they appear to be a reconciled couple working together on social obligations. The reality was more complex. The Hendersons declined, Linda reported. Margaret said they had a prior commitment, but I think they're avoiding us because of the divorce rumors. The divorce rumors that you created when you hired Samantha Cross and made a public spectacle of our marriage problems, Bobby replied, without looking up from his financial reports. Linda flinched. Even 3 weeks later, Bobby's tone remained coldly polite whenever he spoke to her. He'd kept his word about allowing her to come home, but their marriage existed now only as a business arrangement and public facade. Bobby, how long are you going to punish me? I'm not punishing you, Linda. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. We sleep in separate bedrooms. We barely speak except about business or the children. And you treat me like an employee rather than your wife. Bobby finally looked up at her. Linda, 3 weeks ago you were planning to divorce me and move to California with another man. The fact that those plans fell through doesn't erase what you intended to do. I told you I was confused, manipulated. You were selfish and bored and willing to destroy our family for the promise of excitement. Bobby returned his attention to his reports. I've given you what you said you wanted when you came crawling back, a chance to rebuild our marriage. But rebuilding trust takes time. How much time? I don't know. Maybe years. Maybe never. Linda's eyes filled with tears, but she'd learned not to expect comfort from her husband. The warm, loving man she'd been married to for 25 years was gone, replaced by someone who treated her with the same cold calculation he applied to business deals. Marcus Chun entered the office with his daily security briefing. Mrs. Castellano, he nodded politely to Linda before turning to Bobby. The Henderson Foundation called about next month's gala. They want to make sure the event is still happening after the recent family difficulties. Tell them it's proceeding as planned, Bobby replied. In fact, I want this to be the biggest charity event Phoenix has seen all year. I want everyone to see that the Castellano family is stronger than ever. After Marcus left, Linda looked at her husband with confusion. Why is this gala so important to you? You've never cared about charity events before. I care about perception, Linda. Right now, people are talking about our marriage problems, speculating about our family's stability, questioning whether I'm losing control of my personal life. The gala will show them that Bobby Castellano doesn't lose. Not in business, not in family matters, not in anything. So this is about your ego? Bobby's expression hardened. This is about power, Linda. In my world, weakness is fatal. The moment people think you're vulnerable, they start circling like sharks. Your little affair and family rebellion created the perception that I could be manipulated, that my own family didn't respect me. And the gala will fix that. The gala will show Phoenix's elite that my family is united, loyal, and completely under my control. Travis will be there in a tuxedo, grateful for the opportunity to work for my company. Emma will be there as a dutiful daughter, proud of her father's success. And you'll be there as my devoted wife, radiating happiness and contentment. Linda felt a chill run down her spine. And if we don't play our parts convincingly, then you'll discover what real consequences look like. That evening, Bobby had dinner with Travis at the penthouse. His son arrived straight from the construction site, still covered in dust and sweat, his hands rough and calloused from 3 weeks of manual labor. How are you adjusting to the work? Bobby asked as they ate. It's hard, Travis admitted. Harder than I expected. The other guys don't know I'm your son, so they treat me like any other new hire. No special treatment, no easy assignments. Good. What have you learned? Travis considered the question. That I don't know anything about construction. That college didn't prepare me for real work. That the guys on the crew have more practical skills than I'll ever have. Bobby nodded approvingly. What else? That running a company like yours takes more than just knowing about business theory. You have to understand every aspect of the operation, every job, every challenge the workers face. And Travis met his father's eyes. That I was an arrogant kid who thought he could do your job better than you without ever learning how to do it all. Bobby felt a flicker of satisfaction. Are you enjoying the work? No, Travis said honestly. It's exhausting, it's dangerous, and it pays terrible money. But I'm learning things they don't teach in business school. And the guys on my crew, they work harder than anyone I knew in college. Those men have families to support, mortgages to pay, bills that don't wait for convenient timing. They can't afford to show up late, call in sick, or give less than their best effort every day. I'm starting to understand that. Travis paused. Dad, I want to apologize again. Not because I'm working construction now, but because I finally understand what I did to you. Bobby waited for him to continue. You built this company from nothing. You worked for 30 years to create something that could provide for our family, employ hundreds of people, and contribute to the community. And I tried to take it away from you because I thought I knew better. What you tried to take wasn't just my company, Travis. You tried to take my reputation, my standing in the community, my identity as a father and husband. You tried to destroy everything I've worked for because you thought it would be fun to rebel against authority. Travis nodded. I know that now. And I know that saying I'm sorry isn't enough. What would be enough? Proving that I can be trusted. Proving that I can work as hard as you do. That I can earn what I have instead of expecting it to be given to me. Bobby studied his son, looking for signs of manipulation or false sincerity. But Travis's exhaustion seemed genuine. His humility earned rather than performed. We'll see, Bobby said finally. Talk is cheap, Travis. Show me through your actions over the next 2 years whether you're worthy of being my son and heir. As Travis left, Bobby felt cautiously optimistic for the first time since this ordeal began. Perhaps his children could be salvaged after all. Perhaps they could learn the lessons he'd been trying to teach them their entire lives. But forgiveness would still require more than apologies and hard work. It would require absolute loyalty, unwavering respect, and proof that they would never again be capable of betraying the man who'd given them everything. Chapter 9. The Phoenix Rises. The Phoenix Metropolitan Children's Foundation Gala was held at the Arizona Biltmore, the same hotel where Bobby had confronted Derek Hoffman 6 weeks earlier. The ballroom was filled with Phoenix's most influential families, politicians, business leaders, and socialites, all eager to see how the Castellano family would present themselves after weeks of scandal and speculation. Bobby arrived in a custom-tailored tuxedo, Linda resplendent in a diamond necklace he'd given her for their 20th anniversary. To the casual observer, they looked like the perfect power couple, radiating success and unity. Only Bobby knew that Linda had practiced her smile for hours in front of a mirror, terrified of making any mistake that might embarrass her husband. Travis and Emma flanked their parents, both impeccably dressed and perfectly behaved. Travis's hands were still calloused from construction work, but his manner was respectful and mature in a way it had never been before. Emma had abandoned her college activist wardrobe for elegant designer wear, her radical political views carefully hidden beneath social pleasantries. The evening proceeded exactly as Bobby had orchestrated. He gave a speech about family values, community responsibility, and the importance of supporting Phoenix's most vulnerable children. The irony wasn't lost on him. He was being celebrated for his charitable work while systematically destroying anyone who had betrayed him. During the cocktail hour, Margaret Henderson approached Linda with barely concealed curiosity. Linda, you look wonderful. I heard there were some difficulties recently. Linda's smile never wavered. Just some family stress, Margaret. You know how it is when children reach adulthood and start making their own decisions. But we worked everything out. We're stronger than ever. And the rumors about divorce proceedings? Completely false. Bobby and I have been married for 25 years, and we plan to be married for 25 more. Linda's response was perfectly rehearsed, delivering exactly the message Bobby wanted circulated. Across the room, Bobby was engaged in a similar conversation with Frank Morrison, a competitor who'd been hoping to acquire some of Castellano Holdings' contracts during the family crisis. Bobby, good to see you looking so well, Morrison said. There was some concern in the business community about your personal situation. My personal situation is perfect, Frank. My family is united, my business is thriving, and my future has never looked brighter. Bobby's smile was genuinely confident. In fact, I'm announcing some major expansions next month. We're breaking ground on 3 new developments and acquiring 2 additional companies. Morrison's disappointment was visible. Like many of Bobby's competitors, he'd been hoping the family drama would create business opportunities. As the evening progressed, Bobby watched his family perform their roles flawlessly. Linda charmed potential clients and maintained perfect composure. Travis discussed his learning experience in construction work as if it had been his idea, describing how much he'd grown from working alongside the company's crews. Emma spoke eloquently about her business studies and her excitement about joining the family company after graduation. To everyone present, the Castellanos appeared to be the embodiment of family success and unity. The highlight of the evening came when Bobby was presented with the Foundation's Humanitarian Award, recognizing his contributions to children's charities throughout Phoenix. As he stood at the podium accepting the crystal sculpture, he looked out at the assembled crowd and felt a deep satisfaction. "This award belongs not just to me, but to my entire family," he said. "My wife, Linda, who has supported every charitable effort we've undertaken. My son, Travis, who is learning the value of hard work and community service. My daughter, Emma, who reminds us that the next generation will carry forward our commitment to helping others." The applause was thunderous. Several people later commented that they'd never seen the Castellano family look happier or more united. After the event, as they rode home in Bobby's Bentley, the family sat in silence. The performance was over and reality had returned. "Did I do okay?" Linda asked quietly. "You were perfect," Bobby replied. "Everyone there now believes our marriage is solid and our family is stronger than ever." Emma spoke from the back seat. "Dad, I know this was all for show, but it felt good to be part of family again, even if it's not real." Bobby caught her eyes in the rearview mirror. "Emma, it is real. It's just different than before. Before, you were children who took my love and support for granted. Now you're adults who understand that being part of this family requires effort, loyalty, and respect." Travis nodded. "Dad, I want you to know that tonight wasn't just an act for me. I am grateful for the opportunity to work for the company. I am proud to be your son, and I do want to earn my place in this family." Bobby felt something shift inside him. Not forgiveness, not yet, but perhaps the beginning of genuine hope. "Travis, actions speak louder than words. But you've made a good start." As they pulled into the driveway of their Scottsdale mansion, the same house where this crisis had begun 6 weeks earlier, Bobby reflected on how completely the situation had been resolved. Derek Hoffman was dead, his threat to the family eliminated permanently. Linda had been thoroughly humbled and brought back under Bobby's control, her independence revealed as the dangerous illusion it had always been. Travis and Emma were learning valuable lessons about loyalty, respect, and the consequences of betrayal. Most importantly, Bobby had demonstrated to everyone in Phoenix that he was not a man to be crossed, manipulated, or underestimated. His business competitors had learned that attacking him during perceived weakness would only make him stronger. His social peers had learned that the Castellano family was unshakable. His employees had learned that loyalty was rewarded and betrayal was punished. But the most important lesson had been taught to his own family. Bobby Castellano was not a man who forgave easily, who forgot betrayals, or who allowed second chances without demanding complete submission in return. As they entered the house, their house, the one he'd always owned despite their attempt to lock him out, Bobby looked at his wife and children and felt satisfied with the new order he'd established. Linda would never again mistake his love for weakness or his devotion for vulnerability. Travis and Emma would never again take their privileges for granted or believe they could challenge his authority without consequences. They were his family again, but on his terms, under his control, with full understanding of what happened to people who betrayed Bobby Castellano. In the end, he'd given them exactly what they'd claimed to want: independence. They'd learned its true cost and chosen to return to the safety of his protection and provision. But they would never again be naive enough to believe that safety came without a price, or that Bobby's love came without conditions. The foundation of their family had been rebuilt, stronger than before, but on bedrock rather than trust. And Bobby Castellano had proven, once again, that he was a man who always won in the end. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.